Welcome to Chelmsford Baptist Church Online. This is one of our pre-recorded talks, and we're on episode, is it 5? Maybe 6 of looking at things from the Gospel of Mark, kind of iconic moments in the life of Jesus, of his teachings and his miracles and what he did. And we're going to think a bit today about exorcisms. I know. And Mark's gospel is scattered, as are all the gospels, with stories and references to Jesus exorcising demons from people. And before you go all omen on us, let's hear the story from Mark chapter 9 of one such exorcism. This from Mark 9:14. When Jesus and those who were with him came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them. The teachers of the law were arguing with them. When all the people saw Jesus, they were filled with wonder and ran to meet him. "What are you arguing about?" Jesus asked. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son. He's controlled by a spirit. And because of this, my son can't speak anymore. And when the spirit takes hold of him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth, and his body becomes stiff. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they couldn't do it." "You unbelieving people," Jesus replied, "how long do I have to stay with you? How long do I have to put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. As soon as the spirit saw Jesus, it threw the boy into a fit. He fell to the ground and he rolled around and foamed at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long's he been like this?" "Since he was a child," he answered. "The spirit's often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and please help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything's possible for someone who believes." Right away the boy's father cried out, "I do believe. Help me to overcome my unbelief." Jesus saw that a crowd was running over to see what was happening, and then he ordered the spirit to leave the boy. "You spirit that makes him unable to hear and speak," he said, "I command you to come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit screamed, and it shook the boy wildly. Then it came out of him. The boy looked so lifeless that people said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand. He lifted the boy to his feet, and the boy stood up. Jesus went indoors. Then his disciples asked him in private, "Why couldn't we drive out the evil spirit?" He replied, "This kind can come out only by prayer." So what are we to make of this? Well, to be honest, which I'm a big fan of, to be honest, I don't really know. There are several ways to take this, and I'll give you the two extremes. And firstly, that there are these demons, as there are still, lurking everywhere, waiting to pounce on us. They're in the TV, in the books, in the people we don't like. They're lurking in everything. Look, there's one there. They're everywhere, wherever you turn. Or we could take the other extreme, where we go, well, it's just an ancient myth, isn't it? It's not real. There's no such thing as objective evil. There's no evil powers. There's nothing. Nothing to see here. Nothing at all. Just move on. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's just an old story. Now, as you expect, as a good, reasonable and relatively rational Baptist, I would put myself somewhere firmly in the middle there. So what do we make of this? Is it mental illness? Is it some sort of external evil powers? Is it just an old way of seeing the world? Well, firstly, it's very hard to diagnose anything 2,000 years after the event, especially given our understanding of the human mind and science, and also, and this is science too, our understanding of the spiritual nature of human beings has greatly grown. I mean, we no longer see the world as kind of covered in this dome that the waters are held back by, with literally windows in the sky that the gods open every now and then. We no longer think God is appeased by burning dead animals to him and the smoke rises. We don't think that anymore. We've changed. And even people that would profess to take this literally would say, well, of course, the smoke didn't make God happy. We've changed. Well, most of us. So how do we take the story? Well, we can understand the exorcisms of Jesus, whether or not we've reached a conclusion on the demon aspect, because the outworking is just the same. The effect the demon has on the person is to control and restrict their life. Just as many things, and we know this, just as many things seek to control and destroy us. What these stories do show us is that Jesus is in control, just as the miracles of nature reassure us that Jesus is Lord. The powers of evil know who Jesus is and they fear him, just as people fear and oppose goodness and justice. Why do you think politicians lie? Why do you think people do things in the shadows? Why do you think people resist what most of us think that's a perfectly good and reasonable thing to do? Because they fear the truth. They fear goodness because it threatens them. Because goodness and right are two of the most powerful forces that there are, and they will break down deceit and selfishness and hate, which is not good news for those who make money or success or power out of those things. Drug dealers and human traffickers and bullies and self-promoters, people who are on the make, people who control others in abusive relationships, they don't like the truth. And so they will resist it. They will push it back. Jesus sets the boy free, just as he sets others free from pain and from fear and from control and from limited lives and from exclusion and oppression and rejection. The exorcisms that we read about restored people to life and to community. And for some of the stories that we see in the Bible, that meant that the people who owned them lost money. They lost a source of income because this was someone they could no longer traffic and control and exploit, because they could live again as independent, as empowered, and as loved people. And there's no magic spells, no special effects, no spinning heads or crockery flying through the air. Just prayer. You see, the life that Jesus brings actually is very real and believable, and it happens in very real and believable ways. People find their way back. Shackles are broken, and there's no swelling soundtrack or lights glowing as they float into the air as this transformation happens. It just happens in real life. It's very boring and mundane, this way to a full and fabulous, love-filled and grace-filled life. Because the kingdom is already here, if you have the eyes to see it. And that hasn't changed. However, our views of demons or mental illness or possession or whatever may have changed, this hasn't. Jesus sets us free. And he still sets us free. And he can set us free from fear and from drugs and from hate and from prejudice and selfishness and booze and obsessions and anger, whatever it is, you name it. And how? By prayer. It seems too easy, doesn't it? Well, it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And that's why many people don't try it, because people want something fancy and flashy. They want to do something, some magic sequence, burn something or say some words, or I don't know, tie something up and bury it. I don't know. All these complicated rituals. People want music and fireworks and special effects. But I can only say to you, if that's you, I'm sorry, because God is literally very down to earth. He's very down to earth about these things. You'll have to look elsewhere if you want magic, because I don't think magic exists. I'd love it if it did, believe me. Yeah, I'd love to be able to wave a magic wand and we fly, or, say these words and something happens. I don't think that's how the world works. But I think God exists, and the world he made exists, and the rules he put in place, the rules of nature, the laws of nature exist. Some of which we understand, some of which we don't. So I would always encourage us to leave room at the edges for the unknown. But while we do that, we can also live in what we do know to be a fact. And it's this: Jesus can set you free from the small things that hurt and control us to the big things that manipulate and destroy us. Now that's the first ending to the talk. There's a kind of director's cut to this talk, because there's another ending as well. That's maybe the first conclusion, if you like, but there's more. Because what do we make then of demon possession? And I don't know. See, I know people who I trust and I respect, and who've thought deeply about faith, and in every other respect, almost, as to the same extent the rest, all of us are, to the extent that they are rational, normal human beings, and they've talked about this thing, and they've experienced stuff that is kind of a bit out there, but I've not for myself. And I also know that the stuff that we see on TV and in films and in books is absolutely not real. However much people may enjoy a good horror film, it's just a film. This is not how the world works. As if demons were real and they behaved like that, with special effects and lights and noises and everything. Just as the devil is not some horned, hoofed red guy. What I do know about evil is that it is real. It's in us, and it's in the structures around us. I'm not even kidding. You try and deal with some of the big corporations and you get steamroller, don't you? You ring them up and they go, press this for that one, and then they put you through to someone else, and then they put you through to someone else, and before you know it, your soul is destroyed and you've got nowhere. That's evil, particularly if it's something important. If you need help or support and you cannot get it, and the system says, well, you don't fit these criteria, or you haven't done this form right, so you have to start again. That is institutional evil. And you look at the people that work in these institutions, and the church too is one of these institutions. And the people that work there are nice, normal, yet evil happens, because evil is external to us, and we get drawn in, and we have our own concerns and worries, and evil still happens. I think evil does somehow manifest itself externally, just not as slimy, reptilian, flame-eyed critters that we see in the films and the games. because it also lurks in us. And we need to be careful that we don't feed that evil, the hurts that we nurture, the prejudice, the selfishness, the lack of concern and care. It's in there. And if we aren't careful, it can grow and it can possess us and it can take us over. Or we can inflict it on others and it possesses them. Within our families or our communities, we behave in a certain way for a certain amount of time, and it affects other people, and they become hard and callous and uncaring and selfish and evil. So the ending number 2, the kind of second director's cut ending, would be take evil seriously, because it is a power, it is a force. Don't think, oh well, that's just ancient cosmologies that think there's spirits floating about. There is evil floating about, and it can possess us. But know this, and know it well, is that God wins. Love always wins, because light is stronger than darkness. Darkness doesn't even exist. That's part of the lie, part of the trick. Because darkness is just an absence of light. It is not a thing of its own. And love wins, and we see it again and again. And I've said this again and again over the last year or two, I think. I don't know why it keeps coming up. That our natural state is love, not fear or hate. Our natural state is peace, not war. Goodness is stronger than evil. Sooner or later, the world defaults to justice, goodness. Terrible nations and empires rise, don't they? But sooner or later they fall, and we go back seeking goodness. Love wins. God wins. So whatever forces we face, and whatever they are, demons or institutions or human evil, however you best understand that, know this, that God's kingdom will come. Wherever Christ goes, the darkness will fall away. Demons will go, I know who you are, and they'll leg it. God's kingdom will come, and we will find peace and hope and healing. So God bless. Live in the light. Dwell in the kingdom, and wherever you go, take God's love with you. Amen.